Most people looked at me and thought they already knew my story. The wheelchair gave them that permission. I could see it in their eyes, pity wrapped in polite smiles. Like they were imagining a life they could never survive, and thanking God it wasn't theirs. But the truth is, I never wanted pity. I wanted possibility. And I fought like hell to get it. My name is Ryan, and my spine was shattered in a construction accident when I was 23. One mistake on a steel beam, one poorly secured harness, and suddenly I was no longer a man in the world. I was the man they wheeled into rooms last, the one people spoke to with their head tilted, the one strangers clapped for just because he crossed the street alone. But I adapted. Learned how to drive again. Built my own business designing adaptive tech. Spent 5 years pushing through the kind of loneliness that doesn't leave bruises, just cold spaces in your chest. Dating was hell. Women smiled but kept their distance. Some tried, I'll give them that. But they couldn't hide the discomfort. I wasn't looking for someone to fix me. I just didn't want to be the project they took on for a few months before getting tired of pretending. And then there was Kayla. She was different. Or at least, that's what I told myself back then. She saw me at a tech convention, asked questions about my products, laughed at my sarcasm, and never once looked down. Not even when we kissed. She said she loved me. Said she wanted a life with me. I believed her. And then, somehow, we had a baby. A little girl named Maddie, who came into the world screaming and healthy and perfect. It should have been the happiest chapter of my life. But happiness, I've learned, has a way of hiding the cracks. It started small. Late-night texts she wouldn't explain. Long showers with her phone tucked under her clothes. An almost invisible shift in how she touched me. Less often, less meaning. I didn't want to believe it. After everything I'd fought through, after finally having a family, I needed it to be real. But something in my gut twisted tighter each day. And I've learned to trust pain. It always means something. I hired someone. Quietly. Just a guy no one knew, discreet, thorough, no bullshit. I told myself I was paranoid. That trauma messes with your head. That maybe Kayla was just tired. But the photos I got back erased any doubt. She was cheating on me. With Trevor. My friend. The man who helped me rebuild my house, who played pool with me every Thursday, who held my daughter the day she was born. And just like that, the world cracked in half. I had been fighting life for years. But I never expected the real enemy to live inside my home. The investigator gave me a flash drive. He didn't say much, just handed it over and nodded, like he already knew what I'd find. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on my desk for 2 days. I'd roll over in the night, staring at the ceiling thinking, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe he misread it. Maybe I'm not the kind of man women cheat on. But I am. When I finally pressed play, there she was. Kayla. In a parking lot. Meeting Trevor. They embraced, quick, like they'd done it 1,000 times. And then the car door closed behind them. There were other files. Screenshots of messages, timestamp photos outside a motel. A dinner 2 towns over where they kissed like no one could see them. But I saw. I watched everything. My hands were still. My heart wasn't. People think being in a wheelchair makes you powerless. But what they forget is how much time you have to think. To plan. To calculate every movement of your day. You don't waste energy. You don't rush into anything. You don't miss details. And now I had one advantage they didn't. They didn't think I'd fight. But I would. I started small. Changed my passwords. Set up a second bank account. Transferred a little money each day. I didn't want confrontation. I wanted control. I watched her in the house, the way she still kissed me on the cheek before work. The way she asked about my day. The way she tucked Maddie in at night with the same hands she used to touch Trevor. The hardest part was the acting. Pretending I didn't know. Smiling through conversations. laughing at her jokes. Every second felt like holding in a scream. And Trevor? He had no clue. Still called me bro. Still offered to pick up lunch. Still played pool like nothing was burning beneath our friendship. But I didn't lash out. I just waited. That's the thing about revenge. It tastes better slow. One night, Kayla came home late. Said she was with friends from the gym. I smiled and said I'd heated up leftovers. She didn't know I'd seen her car parked outside Trevor's apartment for 2 hours. She didn't know I'd tracked her phone for weeks. She didn't know I had copies of every message she deleted. But soon she would. And when that day came, I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't cry. I'd look her in the eyes and let her feel what it's like to be the one left behind. I started recording things. Not because I needed more evidence, but because I didn't trust my memory anymore. Grief and rage do that. They blur the edges, smudge the timeline, make you doubt what was real. So I filmed. Voice notes. Screenshots. Even Kayla's laundry days. Anything that might one day help me rebuild the truth if my mind couldn't. I kept the footage backed up on 3 drives. Then I started watching Trevor more closely. He was cocky now. Relaxed. He leaned against the walls in my house like they belonged to him. Patted Maddie on the head like he'd earned her trust. That was the hardest part. Not the cheating. Not even the betrayal. It was watching this man put his hands on my daughter. Not with harm, but with something worse, familiarity. That's when I decided. This wasn't just about exposing them. It was about removing them. One night, I waited until Kayla was asleep and I copied every file onto a flash drive. Then I wrote a letter. Just a short one. No yelling. Just facts. Then I emailed Trevor's wife. He never told me much about her. Just that they were on and off. But I found her on Facebook. She still had his last name. Still had photos of them together, old, sure, but still smiling. I sent her everything. No message. Just the files. That was a Thursday. By Saturday, Trevor stopped answering texts. By Monday, he didn't show up at our weekly pool night. And by Tuesday, I overheard Kayla crying in the bathroom. She never said what happened. But I didn't ask. I just waited for her to bring it to me. But she didn't. Instead, she acted normal. More careful. Quieter. But normal. That's when I realized something. She didn't know I did it. She thought Trevor had ghosted her. That the affair had simply collapsed under its own weight. She thought I was still in the dark. Good. Let her think that. Because I wasn't done yet. The hardest part of being betrayed by the woman you love isn't the anger. It's the emptiness. The realization that every touch, every "I love you," every smile during dinner, it was part of a story you thought was real. A story she was rewriting behind your back in another man's bed. I didn't want her back. That part was clear. But I needed her to understand. So I started pulling away slowly. No fights. No accusations. Just space. Less eye contact. Shorter answers. No more spontaneous touches. I made it look natural, like I was just busy. Tired. Distracted. And she noticed. She started asking if I was okay. If I was feeling off. I said I was fine. She started being more attentive. Touching my arm when I passed. Cooking more. Smiling more. Acting, in short, like the version of her I used to believe in. It was pathetic. But also predictable. She sensed it slipping, and she was scrambling to tape it back together. But the tape wouldn't stick. I called my lawyer. Asked about custody, assets, what I'd need to prepare. Told him I was thinking of a quiet separation, no mess, just distance. He asked if I had grounds. I said I did. And I sent him everything. He said I had a case. Said I could keep the house, retain custody, especially with her cheating documented. The fact that I was disabled and had built a stable environment for Maddie mattered. Judges like consistency. All I had to do was decide when. And the answer was, not yet. Because first, I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. I wanted her to doubt me. To wonder. To ask herself at night, what does he know? When did he stop loving me? Did he ever really love me at all? I wanted to take her silence and feed it back to her. Let her choke on the same quiet I had sat in for months. Because I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was the man she didn't see coming. Kayla thought she was fixing us. She started leaving handwritten notes again. Little ones, like she used to, when we first moved in together. Hope your meeting goes well today. Dinner at 6. Love you. She left one in my work bag with a tiny heart at the bottom. I stared at it for a long time, wondering if that heart had ever meant anything. I didn't react. I didn't even mention it. She cooked more. Wore lipstick around the house. Watched movies I liked. I said nothing. And that silence did something to her. I could see it. She started second-guessing herself. Started standing in the hallway longer than she needed to. Started asking things like, "Did you sleep okay?" Or, "You've been quiet lately." I just nodded. The thing is, most people think revenge is about explosion. About yelling. About doing something loud. But the most effective revenge is patience. Kayla started spiraling in small ways. Left the fridge open. Forgot her keys. Let laundry sit too long. Her anxiety bled through the cracks she used to hide so well. I didn't lift a finger to help. Trevor was still gone. Blocked her. Vanished. I think that part broke her more than she expected. She counted on his presence, like a dirty little safety net. And now it was gone. I started bringing Maddie to daycare myself. Didn't ask Kayla if she wanted to join. Just rolled out the door and did it. And Maddie was happy. Secure. Laughing again. I think that hurt Kayla more than anything. Because she could feel it, the house no longer needed her. Not emotionally. Not practically. She was fading from her own life. Exactly how I'd felt for months. I chose a Saturday morning. Warm. Sunny. No distractions. Kayla was cleaning the living room, folding blankets, humming to herself like she was trying to summon some version of us that hadn't existed in a long time. I told her we needed to talk. She froze. Not dramatically, just a half-second pause in her shoulders. Then she turned around with that same neutral expression she used when something died in her hands. I had everything printed. Bound. The timeline. The photos. The statements. The messages. Not just with Trevor. With another man too, someone she'd exchanged flirty texts with while I was recovering from pneumonia last winter. I slid the file across the table. She didn't open it right away. She knew. Her face drained. She sat. And I said nothing. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I didn't let her twist it into a conversation. I just watched her sit in it. After a long moment, she asked if I hated her. I didn't answer. Because hate still implies a kind of connection. And I was already gone. I told her I had filed. The papers were ready. Custody was mine unless she wanted a fight she couldn't win. I had everything documented. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't want her near my daughter without supervision. I couldn't trust that. She cried. But not the kind of crying you do when you lose something sacred. It was the kind of crying people do when they get caught. She asked if I ever loved her. I said I did. Once. And then I left the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. She stayed sitting there, small and quiet, clutching a stack of evidence that weighed more than any suitcase she'd ever packed. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months. Kayla left 2 weeks later. No drama. No begging. No last-minute confession that would change the course of the story. Just a few bags, A few glances around the house, and the soft click of the front door. She didn't say goodbye to me, only to Maddie. And Maddie, too young to understand the full weight of goodbye, just waved and asked if Mommy would be back before dinner. I said no. Not tonight. Not again. That night, the silence in the house was loud. It wasn't threatening anymore. It wasn't watching me. It was just there, like a wound that stopped bleeding. I sat on her side of the bed for the first time in years. It smelled like her shampoo, her lotion, her choices. I stripped the sheets, threw them in a garbage bag, and took them to the bin outside. I didn't want a trace of her on my skin. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds and my daughter's feet on the hallway floor. No tension. No pretending. Just us. I made pancakes. Maddie spilled juice. We laughed. I didn't think I'd ever laugh again in that house. But I did. And not the hollow kind. I started rearranging the house. Not because I had to, but because I needed new paths, new rhythms. I moved the dining table, took down the photos that hurt, kept the ones that didn't. I moved her mug to the top shelf. Not out of spite, just out of reach. I started sleeping better, waking up earlier. I took Maddie to the park more often, talked with other parents. Didn't mention the divorce. Didn't need to. I met with my lawyer again. Finalized the terms. It was all clean. She didn't contest. Maybe she knew she'd already lost more than a courtroom could measure. She moved in with her sister, last I heard. Texted twice. Once about Maddie's shoes. Once about how she missed what we had. I didn't reply. Because I didn't miss it. Not anymore. It wasn't real. It was a shadow I kept walking beside, thinking it was a partner. But now the shadow was gone. And the sun was still there. I started writing again. Nothing public. Just thoughts. Pieces of what I went through. Anger that didn't know where to live. Gratitude I didn't expect to feel. One night, I wrote this sentence and circled it twice. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is power waiting to move. That's what I had now. Power. Not control over others, but control over myself. 3 months passed. Maddie started asking fewer questions about her mom. Kids adjust faster than we think. They just want safety, rhythm, presence. And I gave her that. Every morning. Every bedtime. Every scraped knee and silly drawing. I got stronger. Not physically. I'd reached my limits years ago. But inside, my focus sharpened. I stopped measuring myself against other men. Stopped wondering if I was enough. I was enough. Kayla's name barely crossed my mind anymore. Not because I forced it out, but because my life grew around her absence, like skin growing over an old scar. Trevor, that coward, never reached out. I imagine he felt like a ghost in his own skin. Good. Let him. Some shame should never leave. I got invited to speak at a local tech workshop about adaptive tools, resilience, starting over. I almost said no, but Maddie heard the voicemail and said, "You should do it. You're good at helping people." So I did. I rolled into that room and told him the truth. About broken bones. About silence. About betrayal. And about the day I decided to stop asking why, and started asking what now. They clapped. But more importantly, some stayed after. Asked things that mattered. One of them was a woman named Julia. She didn't look at the chair. She looked at me and smiled. Julia and I met for coffee a week later. I didn't expect anything. I didn't need anything. But she listened. Not like Kayla listened, not waiting to reply. She heard me. I told her I wasn't looking for romance. She said, "Neither am I." We talked about our work, our daughters, our worst days, our best moments. She didn't flinch when I talked about Kayla. She didn't try to fix it. She just nodded. We didn't plan a second coffee. It just happened. And then a third. And then a walk in the park with both our daughters chasing ducks and laughing like nothing bad had ever touched the world. I don't know what this is. Maybe it's friendship. Maybe it'll grow into something more. But for once, I'm not chasing. I'm present. I'm still. And this stillness, after all the chaos, isn't weakness. It's peace. The kind you earn. The kind you keep. And if she ever reads this, I hope Kayla knows. I didn't destroy her. I didn't punish her. I just lived better without her. And that, in the end, was enough.